She only wanted the truth. He only wanted silence. But the heart never signs a contract. Erin Thatcher had never been impressed by marble lobbies. She stepped through the revolving doors of Wilder Freight Systems at exactly 9:02 a.m., her black heels clicking against polished stone, a folder tucked under one arm, and no one there to greet her. Just the silence of a billion-dollar enterprise wrapped in chrome and glass. A building designed to reflect the power of the man who built it, without ever revealing where he was. Which suited her just fine. She wasn't here to be seen. She was here to solve a problem. Quietly. The elevator ride to the 42nd floor was smooth, quiet, unaccompanied. A woman in reception glanced up as Erin approached, but there were no questions, no hesitation. Everyone knew why she was here. Whistleblower audit. Executive review. Discreet. External. High level. It was the kind of assignment that meant only one thing. Something had gone wrong, and the board didn't trust internal hands to untangle it. She was that hand, and she was used to being invisible. But something about this office was too still. The silence wasn't just quiet, it was deliberate, like everyone was waiting for something, or someone. And the man she was scheduled to meet, Graham Wilder himself, was already 13 minutes late. Not typical for a CEO who ran one of the most efficiently scaled logistics platforms in the US. She sat in the waiting lounge, legs crossed, posture easy but alert, eyes drifting toward the sleek boardroom glass just down the hall. She didn't fidget. Erin never fidgeted. She didn't need to. Let them come to her. And they did. Not the board, not the assistant. Him. The man who finally stepped through the glass was not what she expected. Graham Wilder, early 50s, tall and broad-shouldered with effortless composure, wore a charcoal dress shirt with the sleeves rolled once. No tie. His hair, dark with threads of silver near the temples, was combed back, but not overstyled. His jaw was clean-shaven, his face unreadable. He didn't offer a handshake. "Erin Thatcher," he said, more statement than greeting. She stood. "You're late." The air between them stretched. He didn't flinch. "I don't usually make time for contractors," he replied. Erin tilted her head slightly. "That's all right. I don't usually audit companies run by ghosts." There was a beat of silence. Then, something flickered in his expression. A flash of something that could have been surprise or amusement. "Conference room's open," he said, stepping aside. She didn't thank him, just followed. Inside, the room was pure glass and steel, nothing cozy, nothing warm. A long table, 2 chairs, a pitcher of water no one had touched. No photos, no trace of the man whose name was on the building. Erin opened her folder, laid out a clean audit matrix, and clicked her pen once. "I'm authorized to ask for full access to system-wide ops and team-level reports. I won't waste your time if you don't waste mine." He nodded once. "I assume you don't like surprises," she added, barely glancing up. "I prefer answers." Their eyes met, and for the first time in years, Erin Thatcher felt noticed. Not in the way men usually noticed her, not with ego, not with flirtation. With calculation, like he was already looking for her flaw. But she didn't flinch either, because she was looking for his. And as she left the room with the first file request submitted, the system quietly logged her activity, time-stamped, clean. 27 minutes later, someone deleted it. And no one, not even security, flagged the breach. The data trail didn't lie. At exactly 11:18 a.m., Erin Thatcher logged her first query into the secure audit shell. A simple pull, routine, clinical, accessing Wilder Freight's Northeastern Logistics Hub. It was one of the largest regional divisions, and the only one mentioned, cryptically, in the whistleblower's message. "Start where the clean numbers are too clean." Within minutes, Erin had a cluster of red flags. Small ones, but real. Quarter-over-quarter discrepancies in driver contract logs. Vendor IDs that didn't link to any IRS records. Shipments billed to warehouses that hadn't logged a single access badge swipe in weeks. It wasn't enough to scream fraud, but it whispered something. And Erin had learned to trust the whisper before it turned into a scream. By 12:30, she'd tagged and isolated 4 data points for deeper review. By 1:10, she'd started mapping the internal routing structure of the employee responsible for approving those invoices. And at 1:14, she blinked, because her entire log history was gone. Not overwritten, not corrupted. Scrubbed, clean, polished, backdated to look untouched. Like her queries never happened. Like she was never there. Erin didn't panic. She printed physical backups, saved mirror copies to her encrypted drive, She cross-checked the server security shelf from her local device, then closed the lid of her laptop and stood. It was no longer about what she'd found. It was about who didn't want her to find it. And that meant escalation. But not to the board. Not yet. Instead, she made 2 requests through the executive floor assistant she hadn't even been introduced to. A private office terminal with 0 cameras or admin logs. 5 minutes with Graham Wilder today. No explanation. No subject line. Just her name and the timestamp. She expected silence. She got an answer in 27 minutes. 9 p.m., 44th floor. My office. No greeting. No agenda. No clarification. And that told her everything. At 8:56 p.m., Aaron stepped into the elevator alone. The corporate floors above were half-lit and empty, most employees long gone, the office reduced to its bones. Only the hum of the server rooms and the occasional flicker of motion sensors kept the silence from swallowing the building whole. The 44th floor was even quieter. At the end of a black glass hallway, a double door stood half open. No nameplate. No assistant. Just floor-to-ceiling windows casting moonlight across a room designed for power. He was already there. Not behind the desk. Not seated. Standing. Facing the skyline, one hand in his pocket, the other holding a glass of untouched scotch. No laptop. No meeting notes. No phone. Just stillness. The CEO, who was supposed to ignore her, had been waiting. She stepped into the room, closing the door gently behind her. He didn't turn. "You're not just here for numbers," he said, low and even. Not a question. A decision. Aaron didn't flinch. "And you knew that before I walked in this morning." That made him turn. Graham Wilder, up close, was all clean lines and unspoken edge. Salt and pepper at the temples, tailored sleeves rolled just once above his forearms, posture unbreakable. But his eyes, sharp steel gray, held something she hadn't expected. Not defense. Not arrogance. Curiosity. "I've had 6 external auditors in this company in the last 10 years, he said quietly. None of them asked for me by name. I asked, she replied, stepping forward, because someone erased my first request. He studied her face. "And you assumed it wasn't me?" "If it was," Aaron said, "I'd already be escorted out of the building." His expression didn't shift. But something passed between them, a silent agreement that neither of them was playing naive. "You're not easy to read, Miss Thatcher. And you're not easy to trust, Mr. Wilder." She moved to the table and laid the folder between them. Clean. Organized. Labeled. He didn't reach for it. "Show me what you found," he said. She met his eyes. "Only if you tell me what you already know." There was no pause this time. He stepped forward, took the folder, and flipped it open. The folder sat open between them, but neither of them moved for the first page. Graham Wilder's gaze held steady on the audit summary, too long for someone who lived his life scanning data in seconds. He hadn't touched the paper since flipping it open. His hand hovered just above it, still, calm on the surface. But Aaron watched his breath, not his face. It had changed, just slightly. The control had thinned. He reached down, turning the page like it weighed more than paper. The first invoice listed was standard, vendor alignment, freight contracting, nothing explosive. But Aaron said nothing. She let the page turn. Slowly. Then he got to the internal routing table. There. Line 2. Logistics Cross-Coordination Subcontractor, T. Dalton. It was typed in the same font as the others. No red flags. No boldface. Just a name, buried in the neat language of professional fraud. He froze. Not visibly. Not theatrically. Just enough. "You see it," Aaron said. She didn't raise her voice. No judgment. No triumph. Just certainty. He didn't answer. So she stepped around the table until they were side by side, shoulder to shoulder. Her finger tapped the page. "This signatory appears 24 times in just the Northeast Division, routed through separate terminals. It's the only vendor contact without a corresponding active ID in the employee database." Still, no reaction, except his jaw. It clenched once. That was the tell. "You know that name," she said again, lower now. Closer. He inhaled through his nose. "I know the alias." Her eyebrows lifted. "Alias. Thomas Dalton, Senior Regional Ops Manager, circa 2016 to 2018. Brilliant logistics mind. Pathologically arrogant. He figured out how to quietly reroute freight invoices through false vendor IDs and kick them into an external third-party chain. "And you caught him." "We caught enough," he said. "Legal shut it down quietly. Dalton was terminated." The internal report was sealed. Which means this, she said, gesturing to the file. Shouldn't be possible. He didn't nod. He didn't have to. Aaron stepped back, processing. To route new orders through an old identity, someone had to manually reauthorize that credential chain. Dalton's not active in the system, not unless someone reinstated him behind the firewall. She looked up at him. Someone with top-level clearance. Silence stretched. The room didn't feel like an office anymore. It felt like a trap that had been waiting to be triggered. Graham stepped away from her and walked to the floor-to-ceiling window. The city flickered outside, silent and vast. Reflected light carved shadows along the lines of his face, but he wasn't avoiding her gaze. He was avoiding something else. I built this company, he said quietly. I don't miss things. Aaron said nothing, because clearly he had. Then he turned, eyes steady. There's a file, he said. What kind? One that was never logged in the audit system. A manual binder. A record of the termination. And of Dalton's off-the-books exit package. Exit package. He exhaled once. That quiet kind of frustration that only lives in the back of a man's throat. Some of the board didn't want his knowledge walking out the door and into our competitors' hands. A deal was made. Quiet money. Sealed NDA. It was a mistake. Where is it? He walked across the room, stopping at a floor-to-ceiling bookshelf built into the back wall. To the untrained eye, it looked decorative, a minimalist design of metal and matte wood. But his hand moved instinctively to the third shelf, tapping a recessed panel near the right corner. A faint click. He reached inside and pulled out a flat black binder. No label, no dust. He held it out to her, but didn't let go immediately when she took it. His fingers lingered on the cover, like he wasn't just handing over a file, but something heavier. His voice, when he spoke again, was lower than before. You're not going to like what's in there. She didn't blink. You already don't. For the first time, he looked directly at her, not as an obstacle, but as a threat to the lie he'd been standing on. And as their hands brushed during the exchange, neither one looked away. Not from the file, and not from each other. The binder was heavier than it looked. Aaron Thatcher took it to the table without speaking, setting it down in the pool of low amber light that spilled from the pendant lamp overhead. The room was still too still, but she felt Graham's presence behind her like a static charge. He didn't move, didn't speak, just watched. She flipped the first page. Old paper, heavy stock, corporate letterhead from a decade ago. The typeface was older, sharper. Emails printed out and stapled. Internal memos marked confidential, Class B. Names redacted. Most of them, except one. Her eyes caught it halfway down the second page, a memo from the internal legal team, dated just 2 days before Dalton's termination. Subject, temporary compensation override, executive discretion required. Authorization, M. Sinclair. Aaron froze. Sinclair. The name meant nothing to most people, but to her, it snapped into place. Margot Sinclair, current head of compliance. Still on payroll. Still active, still in this building, and listed on every quarterly ethics report as the one signing off on system health reviews, including the one Aaron was sent to validate. You knew she was still here, Aaron said, not turning around. A pause. I did, Graham said. And you didn't tell me she had access to Dalton's file? I didn't know, he replied. I thought it was sealed. I thought it was inaccessible. You thought, she repeated, more to herself than him. She flipped another page. This one handwritten in black pen, neat cursive. Dalton is too smart to burn. This buys silence, not safety. Keep him off record. Distribute through shell routing. Sinclair knows the chain. No signature, but the initial was there. Scrawled in ink. GW. Her hand stilled over the paper. Behind her, Graham didn't move. I signed that under board pressure, he said quietly. I wanted him out. They wanted to keep him. Useful. Aaron didn't speak. Because the truth wasn't just on the page, it was standing behind her. Breathing. Regretting. And that meant something else was true, too. This wasn't a corporate scandal. It was a survival strategy gone bad. She turned. You buried him, and someone dug him back up. His jaw clenched, but he didn't deny it. Margot's been clean for years, he said. At least. I thought. Aaron closed the binder slowly. She's not just dirty. She's careful. Smart enough to keep her hands off the new files and reroute them through alias shells. But there's something else. Something I can't see yet. Graham stepped forward. Then looked deeper. I will, she said. But you're not going to like what I find. I already don't. They stood in silence, two people who just stepped into the same fire for different reasons. Not colleagues, not enemies. Something in between. He moved first, took the binder from her hands and slid it back into the wall panel without ceremony. Locked it. Do your work, Erin. She nodded once. I will. But as she walked toward the door, her hand on the handle, he said one more thing. Something softer. You didn't ask why I really let you in. She paused, turned back. You wanted control of the narrative. He shook his head, barely. I wanted to see if someone who doesn't owe me anything would tell me the truth. Their eyes locked across the room. And in that moment, it wasn't just about what she might uncover. It was about whether either of them could survive it. Margot Sinclair didn't blink when Erin asked to meet. She didn't dodge the request, didn't reroute it to legal, didn't send an assistant with a neutral reply. She simply glanced up from her desk, offered a smile that never reached her eyes, and gestured toward the old archive room near the east stairwell. Let's not take up anyone's calendar, she said coolly. We'll talk somewhere quiet. Erin followed her down the hallway without speaking. Every heel click on the polished floors echoed a little too sharply. The afternoon light through the glass corridors felt colder somehow, even though the sun still hung outside. The archive room hadn't been touched in years. The lights buzzed faintly overhead, and the shelves, once home to quarterly binders and early rollout blueprints, now sat mostly empty, gathering dust. A company banner, half unfurled, leaned forgotten against the back wall like a relic no one had the nerve to throw away. No windows, no cameras, no witnesses. Margot shut the door gently and turned, folding her hands in front of her tailored blazer. I assume you're not here to ask about parking validations. Erin set the folder down on the table, opened it. One document. Clean, sharp, unmistakable. A memo, 10 years old, printed on Wilder freight letterhead. Authorization, M. Sinclair. Margot looked at it, but didn't reach for it. Erin didn't sit. She didn't speak, either. Margot finally sighed. You know that's sealed. That's why I'm holding it, Erin replied. The older woman smiled faintly. You've been here what, for days? Already digging in places you're not cleared for. Dalton's name reappeared in active vendor contracts routed through logistics, Erin said. Someone reinstated his signature under a buried procurement shell. I found your clearance attached to the override. And now you're standing here pretending that's routine. Margot walked slowly around the table, like she was circling a conversation more than a confrontation. Her heels made no sound on the worn carpet. She stopped just short of Erin's shoulder. Let me explain something, she said. In companies like this, we don't operate in absolutes. We manage consequences. That's what compliance is. No one gets their hands entirely clean, Ms. Thatcher. We just learn how to keep the stains off the public record. Erin turned slightly. You call that strategy. I call it fraud. Margot's eyes twitched, barely, before the expression softened again. You think you're the first one who's come here looking for corruption? I don't care if I'm first, Erin said. I care if I'm the last. That got her attention, but not in the way Erin expected. Margot looked almost amused. Tell me something, she said, leaning just slightly closer. You really think Graham Wilder doesn't already know how deep this goes? Erin held her ground. He wouldn't have let me in if he knew everything. Margot's laugh was low and quick, as if that answer confirmed something. You don't understand him yet, she said. You think he's letting you run this audit. He's not. He's watching what you'll do when you find something that can't be solved with a spreadsheet. You're avoiding the question. And you're assuming there's only one, Margot replied, finally walking back toward the door. She reached for the knob, then stopped, turned halfway, and said, almost casually, You should check the third-floor conference cameras. Last Wednesday, 2:18 p.m. Why? Erin asked, but Margot just smiled, a colder version of the one she wore earlier. You weren't there, she said, but someone using your credentials was. And then she left, calm, composed, like nothing had happened. But Erin's fingers tightened around the folder. Because she hadn't accessed that floor last Wednesday. She hadn't even been on that side of the building. And if someone had been in her name, that meant someone had already planned for her investigation to fail. The third floor had always been quiet. Too quiet. Unlike the rest of Wilder Freight's headquarters, all glass, and orchestrated transparency, the third floor was designed for what didn't need to be seen. Servers. Silent compliance rooms. Controlled access points with no windows. No conference chatter. No framed company values on the walls. Erin Thatcher had never been assigned a reason to go there. but Margot Sinclair's voice still echoed in her head. If you want to see who's really watching you. Third floor conference cameras. Last Wednesday, 2:18 p.m. And Erin hadn't been on the third floor last Wednesday, which meant someone had. Using her name, she moved quickly, quietly, dressed down from her usual blazer, soft black sweater, clean slacks, no heels. Just silent steps and a badge she shouldn't technically possess. A cloned admin pass. Not given to her through HR. Not issued by IT. Slipped discreetly into her audit file the day before, by Graham Wilder himself. She hadn't asked for it. He hadn't explained. And that alone made her nervous. The security lock clicked open after 3 seconds. Inside the surveillance suite, the air felt colder. The temperature was regulated for tech stability, but Erin knew that wasn't why her skin prickled. The room was built for secrets. Sharp corners. Monitors like mirrors. No voices. Just the soft hum of power breathing through the walls. She sat at the central terminal and keyed in the access Graham had scribbled 7 digits and 1 underscore. A system shell opened. No sound, just a flicker of green. Camera archive access. Location, Level 3, Conference Room C. Time, 2 to 2:30 p.m., last Wednesday. Her fingers hovered above the enter key. Then she pressed it. The screen split into 4 windows. Hallway, conference room, elevator vestibule, door entry angle. Each camera fixed, each time synced. She dragged the cursor back to 2:17 p.m. Play. The hallway showed nothing. Just sterile walls. Then movement. A woman stepped out of the elevator. Confident. Smooth stride. Mid-40s. Hair in a tight, elegant bun. The blazer was identical to Erin's. The height. The posture. Even the walk. That swipe at the door. Thatcher. Erin froze. But it wasn't her. She leaned in, studied the face as it passed the side hallway camera. Sharp jaw. Narrow nose. But the eyes wrong. The mouth too small. The smile non-existent. It was a near-perfect match, but not perfect enough. Someone had been sent to impersonate her. On camera. Deliberately. She clicked to the second feed. Conference Room C. The woman entered. Alone. Saturday. Typed on a laptop. Stayed 10 minutes. Left. It was meant to look ordinary. But Erin had never set foot in that room. Not once. Then she clicked to camera 3, hallway, angled east. Playback showed the door. Just as the fake Erin entered. Someone else stepped into frame. Quiet. Unmoving. A man. Dressed in slate gray. Standing just outside the line of entry. Arms at his sides. Watching. For 2 full seconds, he turned his head slightly toward the camera. The profile was unmistakable. Graham Wilder. Her stomach flipped. She hit rewind. Froze the image. Played it again. Same timing. Same stillness. He hadn't approached. Hadn't stopped the woman. Hadn't entered the room. He just watched. Erin's breath caught in her throat. Her hands tightened on the edge of the desk. Because suddenly the question wasn't just who had used her badge. It was why the man who gave her access knew someone had her. And said nothing. The silence in the room grew heavier. Dense. She felt it behind her now, like a shadow at the edge of light. Turned. No one. Just the hallway beyond the open door. But for the first time since the audit began, Erin no longer felt like she was uncovering someone else's secret. She felt like she was part of it. And whatever Graham Wilder had brought her here for. It wasn't just to fix his company. Graham Wilder didn't look surprised when Erin walked in. It was nearly 10 p.m. The executive floor was dimmed for night mode. The kind of corporate hush that made every step sound louder than it should. The skyline behind him pulsed in gold and electric blue, but the room itself felt still, like something suspended just before impact. He was standing near the sideboard, one hand loosely holding a heavy-bottomed glass. There was no scotch in it, just the echo of the habit. Erin didn't knock. She didn't wait. She closed the door behind her and said, evenly, "You saw her." His shoulders lifted only slightly. Not denial. Not resistance. Just confirmation. "I did." He didn't turn. Her voice didn't rise. "And you didn't tell me." Now he turned. Slowly. "I wasn't sure she was real." Erin blinked. "Real? I've seen ghosts in this building before," he said. "Sometimes they wear ID badges. Sometimes they wear regrets." She stepped closer, the space between them narrowing. "I watched the footage. I saw the badge scan. The impersonation. And I saw you. Watching. I didn't interfere," he said. "No," she snapped. "You didn't." He exhaled, set the empty glass down. Because if I had, it would have tipped them off. You wouldn't have had time to see it for yourself. They would have shut everything down, cleaned their trail. Erin crossed her arms, sharp now. Tighter. So you let someone use my credentials. Let someone walk through this building pretending to be me, while you stood behind the cameras and did nothing. He stepped forward, not with aggression, but with gravity. I did what I had to do to confirm what I feared, he said. That the past isn't dead. That the people I buried didn't stay buried. There was a long pause. Erin's voice dropped. Who is she? His jaw worked once. Then, her name is Marin Blake. The name fell between them like a stone dropped in deep water. She worked here? Erin asked. She was a junior analyst under Dalton. Quiet, smart, loyal, and complicit? She built part of the routing shell he used to move funds under the table. Whether she knew the full scope at the time, I'll never know. Erin didn't blink. You let her walk. I didn't have a choice, he said. She was protected by someone on the board. Someone who didn't want the fallout to reach the press. They buried the scandal. And I sealed the file. And now she's back, Erin said. Pretending to be me. Graham nodded once. Slowly. Which means this audit isn't just inconvenient. It's dangerous. Someone doesn't want you here. Someone wanted you discredited. And you gave me access anyway? I needed someone who didn't owe me anything, he said quietly. Someone smart enough to see through the noise. Someone willing to push even when it got ugly. Erin stepped toward the desk, her hands resting lightly on the glass surface. Her voice was lower now. You could have warned me. I did, he said. In my own way. Not good enough. They stared at each other, not as CEO and auditor, not as suspect and investigator, but as two people who had spent too long carrying truths no one else wanted. She's not alone, Erin said. No, Graham admitted. She never worked alone. Dalton? I thought he disappeared. But now, I think he's been here the whole time, hidden in the cracks, feeding someone exactly what they need. Erin turned toward the door. Where are you going? He asked. To trace the digital route she used to access my credentials. There's a signature key buried in the system. Whoever created her login shell, they left fingerprints. You'll be hunted the moment you access it. I'm already being watched. She reached for the door. But before she opened it, he said, not loud, but just enough. If it comes down to protecting the company, or protecting you, I already made my decision. She paused, looked back. The look on his face wasn't rehearsed. It wasn't charming. It wasn't powerful. It was vulnerable. And that scared her more than anything she'd seen in the footage. Because Graham Wilder wasn't built for vulnerability. But he'd shown it to her. And now? Now she had something to lose too. The door to the server archive room closed with a soft mechanical click. No one was supposed to be on this floor after 11 p.m. But Erin Thatcher wasn't waiting for permission anymore. She moved like she belonged, shoulders squared, movements clean. But inside, her heartbeat was electric. This wasn't audit protocol anymore. This was something colder, sharper. This was survival. The lights buzzed faintly overhead, illuminating rows of locked racks and humming drives. The compliance terminal sat at the far end, tucked behind a tall partition and partially shielded by stacked inventory crates, probably why no one noticed it hadn't been used in months. She keyed in the admin override, the one Graham hadn't explained, but had left scratched on a sticky note in the edge of a binder 3 days earlier. 7 digits. 1 underscore. The screen flickered to life. A sparse terminal shell. No corporate dashboard. No safeguards. Just code. She didn't hesitate. cd/root/ops_audit/berrycore/_archive. Dozens of folders populated instantly. Most were dormant, archived reports, inactive employee logs, old compliance scans that hadn't been touched since before the last restructure. But one folder was bolded. Alive. Merge. Legacy key. It had no time metadata. No author tag. No digital footprint. Just one label. Restricted. Erin's fingers hovered over the mouse. Then clicked. A login prompt appeared. But it didn't ask for a name. Only a passphrase. No hint. No context. She stared at it for a long beat. Somewhere in the distance, a vent rattled, or maybe it was a footstep. But she didn't look up. Her mind replayed Graham's voice in her head. 2 nights ago, just before handing her that sealed file. The truth isn't buried. It's combined. She tried. Combined Ruth. Access denied. Another. Merge truth. Access denied. She leaned back, exhaled. Let the words play again. Buried. Combined. Not separate. Not erased. Just. She typed. Consolidated lies. Access granted. The folder opened. 5 files. Old extensions. Legacy logs. Disconnected timestamps. But one. One had a live timestamp. Merge_shell, v2.log. Modified. 3 days ago. Her pulse thudded behind her ribs. She opened it. The screen filled with cascading text, fast, raw. Names. Numbers. Accounts. Vendor chains. And then. Authorized by M. Sinclair. Encryption backup key held by G. Wilder. Erin stared. Her throat dried. Graham had a backup key. He knew about the second shell. Not just the Dalton scandal. Not just the legacy routing. This. Now. He'd known about this, and he hadn't told her. She reached to pull the file into her portable drive, her fingers shaking for the first time since she stepped foot in this building. And then it happened. The screen flickered. For half a second, the terminal blinked to black, then white. Remote admin access engaged. Session control revoked. Terminating connection. No. She slammed the override key. Nothing. The cursor froze. And then, all at once, the system died. Dark. Silent. She stood slowly, her pulse now full panic. A small sound echoed through the room. A soft mechanical click. Not the computer. The door. Locked. From the outside. She turned. A red light above the keypad had turned solid. The handle wouldn't budge. Someone had seen her access the file. And they'd locked her in. She was no longer just chasing a story. She was inside the story's kill zone. Footsteps echoed faintly in the corridor beyond the sealed door. Then they stopped. She backed away from the glass. For the first time, Erin felt something she hadn't in years. Not fear of exposure. Fear for her life. Because she'd just uncovered the one thing someone was willing to do anything. Anything to erase. The lock disengaged at 12:47 a.m. It wasn't an alarm. Not a voice on the other side. No company security. Just the subtle click of a mechanical override from somewhere deep in the building. A silent decision made by someone watching through the walls. Erin didn't wait to find out who. She slipped into the dark hallway, her footsteps silent, her drive still warm in her pocket. The one that had captured just 3 lines of the compromised log before the shutdown. But it was enough. Merge Shell v2 wasn't just illegal. It was current. Live. Tied to transactions processed within the last 90 days. And it implicated names at the highest level, including Margot Sinclair, 2 senior execs, and a hidden partner whose digital alias had been used before but never traced. Until now. She moved fast, avoiding the elevators, cutting through the stairwells until the floors blurred. She didn't stop until she reached the 44th. Graham's floor. His office door was ajar, lit from within, and he was waiting. Again, this time, sitting behind the desk, not looming, not hiding, just there, sleeves rolled up, no drink, no watch on his wrist, just his eyes on her the second she entered. "You knew," she said, closing the door behind her. He didn't ask what. "I saw the file," she continued. "Your key was embedded in the encryption. I know. You authorized the backup shell. I didn't build it," he said. "But yes, I approved it. Years ago, under pressure." She stepped closer. "You told me you buried it." "I thought I did," he said. "Until Marin came back." Erin dropped the flash drive onto the desk. "I have enough to bring the board down." "I know that too." She stared at him. "Hard. You let me walk into this blind. You let someone use my name. You watched me walk into the fire." "I didn't let you," he said, softer now. "I chose you." That stopped her. "For what?" she asked. "To do what you couldn't?" "To finish it," he said. "Because if I did it, the company would fall. If you did it, there was a chance it could survive." "But that's not all of it," she said, eyes narrowing. "No," he admitted. "It's not." There was a long pause. The silence filled with 1,000 unsaid things. Then he stood, walked around the desk, stopped in front of her, and said gently, "I didn't want you to know, because I knew if you saw it all, you wouldn't stay." She felt her breath catch. Because for the first time since she'd arrived, he wasn't trying to protect the company. He was trying, and failing, to protect her. "You brought me here to fix the truth," she said. "I brought you here because I couldn't carry it anymore," he replied. "And now." He looked down, then up. Now his voice was almost quiet. "Now I don't care if the board survives. I just don't want to lose the one person who didn't lie to me. Erin blinked. Just once. Then she reached into her coat pocket, pulled out a folded sheet of paper, already signed. Her resignation from the audit. She placed it on the desk, next to the drive, and whispered, "I'm not walking away from the truth, Graham." He nodded. "But I'm not walking away from you either." He looked up. A long beat passed between them. Heavy, silent, real. No contracts. No compliance. Just a man and a woman who had seen too much of each other to look away.